Hello guys, this is Avcoor, and this is my first SR character video, and I want you to look at the guy at the end. This is the character we're going to talk about. In my personal opinion, if you're a free-to-play player and you're not looking to spend any money on this game, I need you to look at Lohannes and know that he is one of the best healers on a budget in the game. I'll start by saying that. So let's get into it. Why do I say that? I mean, Clefaire's a great healer. But unless you summon for her, unless you get lucky, you're not gonna get her. But my boy Lohannes is in the SR pool. So
아비아 파엘,
if you roll for this guy,
등대의 인도로 당신 곁에 왔습니다.
you'll actually be able to get
앉으시지요,
him.
청년이여. 자신에게 시간을 좀 내어주고 마음의 목.
But as always, we're gonna look at his stats first, and you're gonna see some deficiencies and you're gonna see some strengths. Uh, the first thing I'll say is his HP stat is serviceable, but top tier healers, you'll notice, will have rank A
아비아를
HP,
돌봐주셔서
and
감사합니다.
they'll run around with
바로스에 있을 때보다
B physical
훨씬 웃음이
defense
많아졌어요.
and pretty much B concentration as well. Like even
아비아 파엘,
she has
등대의
A
인도로
HP,
당신
she's
곁에
running around with B
왔습니다.
physical defense. Those are kind of the healer stats that you want. But
앉으시지요,
since he's on a budget,
청년이여. 자신에게 시간을 좀 내어주고
C
마음의 목소리를
physical defense
들어보십시오.
and the B HP. The B magical attack is good, and the concentration isn't a big deal. The only real weakness I see in his stat line that you as a player will constantly have to work around is his defense. Because in the content that you would like to play him in, say for instance, I think his strongest role is PvE content. PvP, not so much, as his unique passive does not do enough in order to justify using him there. But if you had to, you have to. I mean, you're not spending money, right? But that's the only thing I think stat wise you're gonna have to fight with is the physical defense. And if you give him a strong rune set, which over time in Magic Spiral you'll be able to do that. So let's talk about his unique passive. At max, it will actually give him magic damage immunity by 30%, which is good. Um, it's not the best. If it was damage immunity 30%, that would be too overpowered and he would no longer be an SR hero. But another thing which makes it solid is whenever he heals somebody, he has a buff. So he gives a passive buff every time he heals. It's kind of like um, the SR healer from Landgresser. Whenever she heals, she gives damage reduction. I think he's based on that mechanic. And it serves him well because he has some strong AoE heals. He actually comes with 2 AoE heals. I think that's the strongest aspect of his skill set is the fact that you're able to, at the beginning of the game, get a healer that produces 2 AoE heals. And I can't stress how important it is for you to have an AoE healer in this game. As the damage these characters do is so high that if you're a free to play player and you don't have Lohannes, either you're really good or you're really suffering or you have a SR healer better than him. This is the only way I can justify it. And with Ice Shield, when you AoE heal, they all get that buff. And if you take an AoE hit, which you will, it will kick in. But after you get hit one time, Ice Shield disappears. So keep that in mind when you're using his abilities. Don't count on it being a consistent buff. It's a turn buff. Whereas once you take the damage, it's over. Another aspect that I think makes Lohannes good is he comes with a leadership skill. It's not the best leadership skill due of unreleased. You take you deal 10% more damage to slowed enemies, and slowed means you have like movement decrease. But when paired with other characters we'll go into later, it actually kind of is multiplicative. The requirements is for you to have two other water heroes, which on some level is desirable, but limited in where you would desire that at. When it comes to Magic Swirl and when it comes to Eris Mool Dungeon, where elements are important, you'll start to realize that leadership skills like this are more preferred than leadership skills that would require you to have like certain classes. As in those type of content, you're going against a big boss that only has one element, and you're using multiple heroes of the same element, and this is just easier to manage. So for later game PvE content, when you're dealing with element-based heroes, this actually proves to be more than just a SR leadership skill. It's really good. And just remember that when you see SR heroes with elemental leadership skills and you're on a budget, you kind of have to prioritize those heroes because when you get into later in-game content, you're going to need to have a leadership skill. And when you have a leadership skill that targets an element in those type of content, it's really good. So this is actually really good, and I'll show you some characters that it pairs really well with. So let's go over his skills. Of course, Power of Therapy is the generic all-purpose healing skill. I think Power of Therapy is one of the best skills in the game. And people will say, "Hey, Avcoor, that's pretty dumb." No, it's not, dude. Look at this. There's no cooldown. He can consistently heal every turn. There are builds that you may use in his skill set that will not require this. And that's only because you have another healer with him. But outside of that, anybody who carries Power of Therapy has a pretty solid chance of being a solid healer. And he comes with that. And that's a good thing. So let's look at his other skills. As you can tell, I've like invested into him a little bit. In fact, if the content gets harder, I will invest into him more. But since I have a lot of those, I can actually max out his path. So let's get into the skills. Um, Solid armor is okay. It's just when you use this character, you're kind of like always using power of therapy every other turn to cycle between his heals. So I don't think it's the best skill, but if you want to spec a certain build, it will be decent. But I just don't think it's worth it. This is one of his best healing skills. Recover HP to all allies within range, and grant them recovery to a single ally for 2 turns. After taking action, recover 20 HP. This is your go-to big heal spell. Use it sparingly. If you can avoid using it, save it to a time when you need to. We already talked about the leadership skill. It's pretty gravy. Ice Explosion Magic. I'm going to talk about these two offensive skills that he gets. Both of them are AoE, which is a good thing. Oh, no, this is a single target spell. Oh, okay. Hmm. Span single. Two down range, 2 tiles. This is a single target? That's not good. I think this is bad. I thought it was AoE. I never made it to this. I thought this was AoE looking at it, but it's a single target attack. This actually is good, but then it's not good. Because it'll take away move and whatnot, but for him, that's not good. It's better on someone like Nina. Like someone like Lena can take advantage of this skill, which is really good. But his magic attack is just too low where they at. I don't think that's good at all. And this is easy to meet as far as conditions go. And this is easy to meet as far as conditions go. With SR heroes, their bonds are easy to meet, so that's not a hard thing to do. I don't like this skill though, because he just doesn't have the magic attack in order to make it work. This is more preferred because in order to cheat certain content, especially the Wizard Academy, Lohannes is great there because he's one more AoE. You only need like 3 AoEs to blow out like the first wave of enemies, and then the enemies get smaller and you can pick them apart. So the strategy on first turn using this skill is use one AoE magic attack, one more AoE magic attack, and then you have your healer, which is Lohannes, throw out the third. That is 3 AoE magic attacks, and it usually blows out the enemies. You just need to match the level with the content that you're applying in Magic Academy, and you should be able to clear it. That's what makes this good. I just don't like the fact that he doesn't have a second AoE, because in PvP, AoE is preferred over single target because single target relies more on stats. Single target is lethal only if you have the stats to back it. With AoE, you can hit the opponent, put a stat like slow on them, follow up with another AoE, put another stat on them, follow up with another AoE, put some more stats on them, and it's hard for the enemy to come back from that. And I think that's the only reason viable use of this skill is in certain content in PvP. It kind of hurts that he doesn't have a second AoE. That kind of hurts him, but that's okay. Um, let's look at to all allies in scope when using this skill. Blessing of Purity is actually good. This is actually a skill that I use for the reason is I would use this because the cooldown is 1 turn, and I use Power of Therapy. This the cooldown is just too high, and I use this. But if I use this skill, I'm not using this skill because the cooldown is just too high. This cooldown is better because with this skill, even though you're not like healing as much, you get rid of a debuff and it's more consistent. This skill is highly reliant on this skill as you cycle between the healing skills, so he can consistently heal. And there will be a time where you will only have you have both of these inactive, and then you just use power therapy. But this with this you actually would use this when you're going up against certain enemies that use AoE skills like Arismul Dungeon, and you pick 2 units that you want to take the AoE hit and you buff them. So that's pretty good. Calm down and increase magic attack by 50% when its lower physical and magic defense are less powerful. Uh, this is okay. I don't think it's good on him because he's more of a skill-based hero. Most healers are more skill-based as they have to actively heal your team. So this skill it only like increases his stats and it doesn't increase anybody else's. It's one cost, but your power therapy, I think, is more important. I don't like this skill. I don't think it's that good. I'm sorry to say that, but I played this game enough to know what works and what doesn't, and I don't think that works. So when you look at his skill set, this is the most common skill set you'll see. Excuse me. He is cycling through 3 heal skills at all times, so your party is pretty topped up. But if you want to, I think this would be more preferred in certain cases, especially if you have a primary healer or if you have a secondary healer. This buff is kind of underrated as AoE is just a pain in the butt because these guys hit so hard that any buff you get actually you can actually see the results of it. But anyway, let's go into runes and I'll give you my overall assessment and people that work well with him. So with runes, you're actually looking at one type of rune, really. It's easy to guess. You're looking at the healing runes. That's it, because you're increasing the healing effect by 20%, and he needs that because in his base kit, he does not have skills that increase the healing that he does, so he relies on his runes in order to do that. Your secondary rune should always be magic eyes. For the simple point is that it increases your magic attack, which affects your healing. So this is the only set he should be using. You don't really have to think about any creative sets. Like there's like multiple sets for different heroes. And you'll see later on in this game that you'll see like weird combinations. You don't have to worry about that with this character. He's only going one way. End of discussion. So who does this character work well with? There's a couple of people I can mention, and it'll really make sense to you. So when we go into glossary, when we go into heroes,
새로운 세계, 새로운 시작.
there's a couple that come to mind, and obviously it's Charlotte, Lena, and Catch. And who else? Saoirse is good as well.
남의 머리 위는 왜 자꾸 쳐다보는 거야?
I think I want to mention Saoirse more than the other heroes because she's SR and it's an SR video. Saoirse is actually a really good character for her. For him, Saoirse and Brown,
성관계사 브라운 환영 인사드립니다.
because
조남이 어떻게 되시나요?
with these you have a blue core. You have a blue core of heroes, and so you can easily activate his leadership skill. So 2 offensive units, 1 healer. Your tank can be anything, and this is a good thing. So you actually want a light tank. You actually want something like Inhard.
이 검과 이 몸은 유령왕님을 위해 존재한다.
And when you look at this is a pretty solid budget team, and you could put Armand or Helsing in there. But when you think about it, your main character, Ballet and Avia are actually good budget people to surround him with. And so you make a core that can handle some very generic content. Hassan is actually a good budget hero. Nicholas is actually a really good hero
교실에서
to add
수업하는 거
in
지루했는데
because
그대가
he's
와서
a
다행이야.
secondary healer that
드디어
does
정당한 이유로
offense.
밖에 나갈 수 있게 됐어.
So when you look at
별의
Nicholas,
탑을 참관하러 온 손님을 맞이하는 게 상부로부터 받은
아,
임무니
네, shut up.
획일화된 생명은
아,
아리스 공장의
whatever.
물건처럼 식상해.
I try to make him shut up.
난 너희처럼 생동감 넘치는 젊은이가 더 좋아.
Nicholas is actually really good because he's a secondary healer and he does offense, and it takes a lot of pressure off Lohannes. So when you're looking at budget options, Helga, Nicholas, Hassan, Layla, William, not so much because William is really underwhelming. Helson is Helson is better than William. Armand, those are budget options. I don't recommend any art characters because the art characters in this game are really, really weak. Don't know why that is. Alicia is good because she is a healer and he would like healers to support him. Kabir is good because he benefits from his buff, increasing his defense. Gene is good, but Gene needs a better healer than him because he's a pseudo tank. Balak is really good, Erica. So there's a lot of good characters that play off of him, but I want to come back to Lena. Lena is one of the starting characters that you get. So if you get Lena, I highly advise you as a free-to-play player to invest in Lohannes because Lohannes fills in a blue slot for her leadership skill, and she fills in a blue slot for his leadership skill. And since his leadership skill is based on people being slowed, Nina is actually good. Catch is actually really good for Lohannes.
고개 숙이지 못해? 잘 들어. 나 캐시의 협조를 바란다면 내가 시키는 대로 해. 알겠으면 큰 소리로 예 하고 대답하고.
This is actually his best tank. Catch is actually Lohannes' best tank because first of all, she fills in a blue slot for his leadership skill. Second of all, she is actually slowing down everybody with her passive. So you're doing extra damage to slow enemies, she actually does that all on her own. This is his best tank. If you actually get catch and you're on a budget, you have a good solid start on this game. Marguerite is actually another good unit that actually benefits Lohannes in a lot of ways because he's a passive healer that
붓고덩이
attacks.
이름으로 낭만과 열정이 가득한 아이비스에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
And once we go more into this content, you'll realize Marguerite makes a lot of these SR characters better, but she is a highly valued, highly expensive character. But if you manage to pull her, she actually works well with Lohannes. So does Charlotte. Charlotte is
아이비스의 바람,
his strongest
아이비스의 모든
offensive
것.
partner.
전부 내가 속할 유일한 곳이야. 아이비스의 기사는 영원히 당신을 위해 싸울 거야.
And I will say this, that a lot of the game I have played has had Charlotte and him in the same team. Charlotte, Lena, and him in the same team. Since I like spend a little bit of money, I was able to get better heroes. And before I got Clefairy, he was my main healer.
앉으시지요, 청년이여. 자신에게 시간을 좀 내어주고 마음의 목소리를 들어보십시오.
But let me end this video with my general overview. Lohannes is the best SR healer in the game. At the start of this game, if you don't spend money, you'll be using him and Avia a lot. And he will fall off in Eris Mool where the bosses start doing AoE and he starts getting killed. You can get around that by positioning your heroes, but ultimately you're looking for light healers later on. But what I will say in closing is don't worry about it so much. You can over level a stage and still use him. So keep that in mind, that this is a healer that you need to spend some time with. And playing him lets you understand the mechanics of the game a little easier. But that's all for now. If you like my content, hit the like, share, subscribe button. I'll get back to you. Have a great day and goodbye.